When you have a she said situation, sometimes it's not easy to sort out the truth. Sometimes you need the wisdom of Solomon, and sometimes you just need to let people speak. Claims have been made by Dick and Jim based on the word of a dismissed juror, the one we all call Egg Juror. And later, we were told that those claims were backed up by another juror. That juror turned out to be none other than Egg Juror's Tenant, Juror 630, whose affidavit changed when they changed her name to Juror Z. Justice Toll found her to be indecisive and therefore was wise enough not to take her words seriously. Now we get to hear her speak, and you get to decide for yourself whether or not we can take her words seriously enough to undo a 6-week double homicide trial. This is Legal Updates with Cassidy O'Connell. The Egg Juror and her wishy-washy tenant speak. Welcome. Myra Crosby has stepped out of anonymity to bring us a book. From what I've heard, the price tag is twice what other Murdaugh books have come in at. She and her tenant, Juror Z, were interviewed by Fox Nation on episode 7 of Fall of the House of Murdaugh. I've covered most of these episodes for you already. After watching, I can't imagine why anyone would waste their money on a book to see what rubbish these two have to say. Why am I being so harsh? Because the chaos caused by these two is immeasurable. So many people roam these YouTube streets parroting the phrase, "Alex Murdaugh deserves a fair trial," without having all the facts. Too many people are too quick to speak. I hear news. I don't repeat it. I soak it in. I ruminate. I research. I'm never the first person to tell a story here. But when I do tell a story here, it's researched. I didn't jump on the Becky Hill Must Die bandwagon. I waited for more facts to come out. I thought about the jurors who had given so many weeks of their lives to do this service, and I gave them the benefit of the doubt. I wasn't doing it for Becky. I read all of the briefs. I read most of the cases on all of those briefs, and that was a lot of cases. I rewatched the trial. I reread motions leading up to the trial, and I thought about the reputations of the people who were speaking and the motivation behind their words. Were they honorable people who fight for justice, or were they people who just want to win at all cost, regardless of guilt or innocence? Did they care about truth, or were they offended by something and wanted to save face? Things like that are important. On one side we have Judge Newman, and my crew knows that my channel is the unofficial Judge Newman fan club. We have Creighton Waters, who I jokingly knighted early on here and called Sir Creighton. In time, we saw a few of the jurors speak calmly, intelligently, and honestly. Then we have a woman who was so thrilled to be on the jury that she just couldn't be quiet about it, and there are many witnesses to that. A woman who didn't heed Judge Newman's words about not talking about the case. There are witnesses to say she spoke outside the courtroom. There are witnesses to say she spoke in the jury room, and she wasn't supposed to do this. This woman was removed. We have her tenant who can't make up her mind, and you won't believe the things she said in this interview. I'm so grateful for this interview, really, because it gives us a look into the absolutely ridiculous. I mean, I would be laughing at her if it wasn't such a harmful situation, but really a ridiculous basis for all of this trouble and chaos. Then we have Dick and Jim. So way back in time, Dick Harpootlian was a contemporary of Buster Murdaugh. And in her book, Valerie Bauerlein describes something that happened between them. Dick was representing a sailor who'd gotten into a fight at a local bar. After the fight, as he was leaving, he hit one of the locals and killed him. This man, for some reason, was someone that Buster had been taking care of. So Buster calls Dick and says, "I've got the judge here in 2 weeks. Be here Monday at 2:30 p.m. and your boy can plead to involuntary manslaughter with no probation. He's got to pay the funeral bills, though." So Dick had a speaking engagement that morning, so he decides to charter a plane. He tells Buster that he's going to need a taxi from the airport. When he arrived at the courthouse, Buster boomed through the whole courtroom. "Judge, the big city lawyer who wanted me to send a taxi cab to the Hampton airport is here." It goes on, the client made the plea, and it was a done deal. And then after that, we find the real motive that Buster had for being so kind about settling this case. The Murdaugh firm filed a wrongful death suit days after the plea, and the insurance paid out $1 million in coverage. $700,000 went to the dead man's family, $300,000 went to the Murdaugh firm for what's described as a few hours' work. Was it unethical? Dick asks as he recounts the story. Sure, but it was also a win-win-win. This man doesn't mind being unethical as long as it's in his favor. This same man that I've showed you clips of making derogatory remarks about people with physical handicaps and laughing about it. When he was corrected, he wouldn't stop repeating the word that he wasn't supposed to use, and then he went on to say, because this was an interview when he was running for senator, that it didn't matter because the people he was talking about couldn't reach the levers to vote anyway, and then laughed his fool head off on national TV. The same Dick who used racist remarks after being told not to use them. Now, when you're told a story, such as we've been told, about what went on behind those doors in that courtroom, where none of us were, you can't jump the gun and say Alex Murdaugh didn't get a fair trial based on something you heard. You have to wait patiently and let the whole story be heard, because these little catchphrases gain momentum, and Dick knows that. And like I said, thousands of people with zero legal background and zero legal knowledge are running the YouTube streets spouting this sentence over and over and over based on nothing but hearsay and rumor. Even when all of the other jurors said it's not true, they can't stop repeating it over and over. It's like the scene in Finding Nemo where the seagulls start saying, mine, 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 mine. Or like the witch trials all over again. Oh, she didn't float. She's not a witch. Oh, too bad. She already drowned. I mean, those people in those days thought they knew what they were talking about too, and they went about repeating it, spreading it around, carrying it out how many times, how many lives lost, how many lives ruined, because they thought they knew or understood something. Now, I sound worked up right now, but that is for good reason that you're about to find out. Let's start with this clip.
To me, it just kind of seemed like everybody was just getting like anxious, like the smokers, and everybody was just ready to go home. So I guess I was like, okay, then I guess we'll just say he's guilty, because, you know, obviously he was going to go to jail for the financial stuff. So I just agreed with everybody else.
So this juror who took an oath, and jurors take an oath before they can serve on a jury. It is a public declaration that they will consider the issues fairly and based on the evidence presented in the trial. She took this oath. She gave a guilty verdict because people wanted to go home, the smokers were getting anxious, and he was going to go to jail anyway for his financial crimes. Are you as angry about this as I am? And people are taking this woman's word to declare this 6-week trial wasn't fairly done. Would you want this woman deciding anything about your life? If your answer is no, then you can't honestly say that an entire trial needs overturned because this is the one juror who said she was influenced by Becky. This woman seems to be influenced by the way the wind blows, and you'll see what I mean the more clips I show you. But here's the thing, Alex had not been convicted or pleaded guilty to his financial crimes yet. So is this really what she was thinking? During the murder trial, nobody knew all of the evidence of the financial trials yet. There had been no plea, there had been no hearings, not even close. So is this really what she was thinking at the time? Or is this simply what she has been told since? Or what she has seen and come up with in her head since? That's a serious question. At the murder trial, most of us were not aware of all of the details of the finances. That came to light during the trial, but that's not a guarantee that he was going to go to jail for those things. So this woman's thinking was, well, he'll be in jail anyway for something else that hasn't been proven, that he hasn't been sentenced for, that he hasn't had a day of trial for. This is the one and only juror of the 12 who declared Alex guilty that has said she was influenced by Becky Hill. Are we really going to turn an entire trial around for this woman? But there's more. And please keep in mind that this isn't like a regular YouTube stream that you can just restream it, and as long as you talk every few seconds, it's okay. This is behind a paywall. It's a streaming service that you pay for. So I'm really taking a risk here showing you these clips. I did have an action taken on my channel before for showing a really quick 10-second clip from Netflix before. That's why last time when I talked about the Juror episode, I just told you about it. I didn't show you clips. So like I said, I'm taking a risk. These clips are going to be pretty short, pretty chopped up. The video may be taken down later. I may have to alter it later. We'll see. But I just couldn't relay to you the nonsense. I have to show you.
Well, whenever his lawyers had come to me and explained some things, it didn't all click until they had, talked to me and to let me know, what Becky did wasn't right.
So she says how this started, not with her thinking something had gone wrong, but did you hear that? When Dick and Jim told her that what Becky did was wrong. Now, I made a lot of podcasts about this subject that you can still find here on my channel. We went through these affidavits. We went through everything we could find about this. There were signs in those affidavits that they had been told by Dick and Jim or asked specific questions by Dick and Jim that planted all of this. And that some of the jurors that Holly Miller had signed affidavits on behalf of then showed up in court and said, no, this isn't so. So obviously, Dick and Jim were out there leading these jurors to try to come back and say that their verdict was not given right and telling them that something was done wrong by Becky.
So would you have ever come forward if the lawyers hadn't come to find you and tell you that Becky had done something wrong?
Probably not.
And this is why I'm so glad this interview took place, because you can get your thoughts together and you can have someone edit your words in a book. But like I said at the beginning, sometimes you just need to let people talk. Next, Martha asks her what were the pivotal moments in the trial. What moment stands out to you?
When you heard the video at the kettle and with the dogs and everybody identifying Alex Murdaugh, I was like, oh my God, he was there, but then the timeline, it just didn't match up. And it was like they didn't do more investigation into different things.
Mm-hmm.
To me, this woman seems like she doesn't even know what exactly it is that she doesn't understand about the trial. Earlier she said timeline, and when the egg juror speaks, we'll see where she got the idea of the timeline from. She mentions there not being a weapon a couple of times. In part of it that I didn't clip, she said she still had questions, but she can never articulate what those questions are. She doesn't say what she wanted them to investigate that they didn't investigate. She really has no defined questions that she needs answers to. She never says what proof she needs. She never forms a real argument about why she changed her mind about the guilty verdict. Everything about her, to me, spells out a very easily influenced person that has no idea about their own mind. And again, this person is the crux of the demand for a new trial. If she could just articulate a reason why there should be a new trial, that would be great, but she can't.
For you, Myra?
The kennel video was a big issue. Listening to the kennel video and watching it, I had a hard time because it was a happy family. They were humble, they were enjoying themselves.
Did she say humble? What about the Murdaughs has ever appeared to be humble? And as far as them enjoying themselves, Paul's making a video for his friend. He's talking about his friend's dog. He's in his own little world there. He's not connecting to them other than to correct his mom and say it's a chicken. But all the while, he knows that he's recording, and he's recording something for his friend. So naturally, he's going to have a friendly tone about himself. All we can take from Maggie's voice is she's excited about Bubba having a chicken. We got to get this chicken from Bubba. That's literally all we hear from her. And Alex does not sound happy. He's screaming at Bubba. He's frustrated with Bubba. But humble, happy family? That's really grasping.
So when I sat down with Gwen and Amy, they said that they did not hear any of this. Watch him very closely. Watch him really closely when he gets up there, because he might try to manipulate you.
No, I didn't hear their part.
You're shaking your head. Why?
I can't say what they heard. I know where they were standing when it was said, but I don't know why they said that.
You feel like they would have heard it.
Yeah, I do.
What about you, Mandy?
Yeah, because one of them was in the same room as me and Myra.
So Amy and Gwen, we've seen a couple of times in interviews. They are well-spoken, they are intelligent women. They do not contradict themselves, they do not make things up, and Amy, as the one I mentioned, has a book coming out very soon. I am very excited to read that book. And I think we're going to hear a lot more about these two ladies right here, their relationship, the time spent together during this trial, things that might answer some questions we have now. I really look forward to reading that book. But one thing I find strange about what they just said is that Myra says she doesn't know why they say that because she knows exactly where they were standing. But did you catch what Maggie said? Only one of them was in the room. So see what I'm saying? Little things like this, when you let a person talk, you start to find little ways that they have not told the truth. So when you have one person speaking something and all the rest speaking another, that already gives you a clue. But it's only fair to hear that person out, and that's what we're doing right now. But in hearing them out, we keep finding these little bits of information that are either untrue or very questionable. How could she know exactly where both of the women were standing if one of the women wasn't in the room? Little things like that. When the other person has not lied, and you keep finding untruths in the other, it becomes very clear who to believe. And I believe Amy and Gwen. One of her reasons for having doubts about Alex's guilt, even though she gave a verdict of guilty, was timelines. And I believe you're about to see why she has that idea.
If you walk from where she was shot from the house, there's just no, I don't know how to describe it.
And now she just seems to be getting confused by whatever conspiracy theorists she's been talking to, because moments ago she talked about the kennel video. The kennel video proves that Alex was there moments before the murder, and now she's saying if he'd walked down from the house to shoot her, there just wasn't enough time. Where does she get Alex walked down from the house and shot them? He was there. The kennel video proves it, and she's already forgotten what she just talked about.
The timeline where they say she was shot, there's not enough time to shoot here and shoot here at the same time.
How about we look at the actual card here, the actual evidence, and see the trail in the path that goes from Paul to Maggie. You can be running and shooting, and you certainly don't have to be Rambo. This was a family that shot guns all the time. This was a semi-automatic weapon. It doesn't take a long time to fire off 5 shots when you're absolutely, according to the evidence, on the move from the first victim to the second victim. And this is what the evidence shows.
I mean, you get out, he got off of his golf cart and he shoots Paul. And he shoots Paul again. And then he goes and he shoots Maggie. When you walk that property, I guess even taking a golf cart down there, by the time you got off that golf cart.
Do you see what I mean? How is she forgetting that Alex was already down there? The kennel video proves it. Why does she keep talking about him coming down from the house?
And the time that it would take over here to shoot Paul, and then Paul, I guess, stumbles forward, and then you shoot him again, and then get to Maggie. There's no way that it could happen in the time that they said. So I don't see how it's possible that he could.
Because it was a long distance?
It is a fairly good distance. You'd have to, I don't know, be like Rambo to just zoom, 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 put this gun down, get over here and grab this one, and I just don't see how.
While we wait for Amy's book, let's not forget there were other people who went to that property, namely Valerie Bauerlein herself. She walked the distance from the shed to Maggie's body and counted her steps. Here's a picture of her there, and this is the same time the jury was there. She was the one reporter allowed to go and visit Moselle with the jurors. She says, the place where Paul's body fell outside the feed room was within eyesight of and just 12 steps away from where Maggie's body was found, she reported. That would be less steps for Alex, who's 6'4". And here she is trying to fool us, saying, well, it didn't look like you see it on TV, and I don't have the full clip, but if you watch the video on Fox Nation, she says, it didn't look like in pictures and on TV. It was really far. You would really have to run. You would have to be Rambo. But petite little Valerie says, 12 steps.
When he told me that they had to do it for the integrity of the court, you got to remember at this time I'm thinking my ex-husband did this and I didn't know anything about the email or any of that.
The judge gave you a reason.
We've had some discussions with you over the past couple of days concerning indications of conversations with few folks not on the jury concerning the case, and expressing some opinion about the case, despite my order to not discuss the case with anyone, that intentionally or unintentionally you've had some discussions with some folks not on the jury. Some conversation was brought up concerning your ex-husband, but that's not a part of this consideration at all.
And I was so happy to see Martha call her out, because she was acting like, I didn't know at the time. Well, I thought it was about the emails. And she said, the judge gave you a reason. And there's the clip of Judge Newman saying, yes, there was some conversation about these emails, but that's not the reason. And let's not forget, behind the scenes, there were a lot of hearings between prosecution and defense, Judge Newman and herself. But she's trying to fool us now.
And towards the end, they asked if everybody was ready to take another poll, and we did, and it was unanimous. Everybody said yes.
Unanimous, guys. I think she means unanimous.
Do you believe he was guilty?
I still had questions.
What was your biggest hurdle in your doubt?
They didn't never find the murder weapons.
But in many murder trials, there's not a weapon.
Yeah.
Next, Martha asks her who persuaded her to a guilty verdict. And she comes up. First she says a little bit Becky, a little bit the jurors. Then she asks her a percent, and she says about 50-50.
Do you think Alec Murdaugh murdered his family?
It's hard to say.
But you put guilty on the paper.
I did, yes.
Why?
And now the flip-flopping juror flip-flops once again.
Because it's a lot of other jurors kind of persuaded me, I guess, that there was no way that he didn't do it.
Thank you all very much.
When put in the hot seat, she forgot what she was supposed to say. She was supposed to blame Becky Hill. I'm sorry, But these women are not convincing. They tell outright lies. They're confused. They don't have facts straight. And I cannot imagine the sheer amount of cost and time it's gonna take to have a whole new trial for a guilty as sin man based on the testimony of these two women we just watched. This is Cassidy O'Connell saying stay well and stay tuned.